here since I have done a video on this project. But that entire time, we haven't completely put this thing to the side. So right now I'm going to have my father over here, who's honestly been the one working on it the most, show you what we've done to sort of mock up the front suspension and get it ready for us to work on today and figure out exactly where we're going to have it sit at, ride height wise. So I'm going to hand it off to you, and you're going to show us basically what we have done so far.
Yep, so we're back to Visit Friends, and we've had some job changes. Miles is in college now. He's becoming an IT professional. He's actually doing an internship. So time has been limited on this, but we have made some machining progress and got the adapters and stuff made for the control arms for the Air Ride old school shockwave installation. So we're going to show you what we did there. All right, so in order for us to prepare for the unforeseen future of what Miles may do with this car, previously when I designed it and thought about the car, the only real suspension that was out there aftermarket wise was the CPP stuff. So I bought it, and of course it sat. And I also bought the shockwaves, and they sat. But in the future, Miles might go to a different suspension, or he might go to use coilovers instead of using the shockwaves. So in order to make it future compatible, I just fabricated some brackets that go into the positions that will hold the shockwave in its correct position. Now, we could have bought these specific shockwaves for the actual 62 through 67 Nova, but we decided to use these ones because this shockwave has the travel that we want, and it also has the adjustments. So made bottom brackets that are adjustable and top brackets. At the point that we're at now, we need to basically get the drivetrain back in the car, the mock-up drivetrain, and see where the headers are going to end up on the ground and the transmission as well. We've done our best to tuck things up underneath and keeping the driveline angle correct, but there's no sense of having this adapter here on the top longer or shorter than it needs to be, so we can have the optimal travel on our airbag air suspension. Since these airbags came out years ago, there has been a lot of improvements, and a lot of JDM and foreign cars have been using the same technology, just been adapting it to their coilover style suspensions using struts, and have had a lot of performance benefits over coilovers. The debate's still out, so that's why we made the adapters, so we can just, you know, if we want to change it to coilovers, we take it, and these adapters will work with most coilovers and stuff too. So that's where we're at now. We're going to go get the drivetrain put back in, and we're going to see how far she'll come down, having mid-length headers, and see you then.
Partially lined up. A little bit. There you go. Now that we have the mock-up powertrain set up inside the car, we can now go put the cylinder heads on top the block, and then attach the headers to it, and see how low the headers naturally sit to the car. to see where the headers will end up hitting the ground. We want to know that position on the car because that's how low we're going to want to set the suspension so that the exhaust isn't quite hitting the ground, but it's about as close as it can reasonably get, so that we are getting the optimum amount of travel out of the suspension that we're installing. Now, since we are using the good heads to be mocked up with the bad block that we have in there, we need to have a surface in between the good and the bad. And that's where these cardboard gaskets come in. These will just go in between the heads and the block, just to make sure that we don't get any of that nasty corrosion laying on top of our good head that we'll have to deal with cleaning up later. Just take the gasket, lay it here. It's got these little punch outs so it holds itself in place. Now that we have the heads installed, it's time for us to pick some headers. And here on the table, we have ourselves two good options. On top, we have ourselves some Flotex. These were relatively cheap when we got them, and will fit the car and will do the job. But as we kept searching for parts for the car, we found ourselves some Hedmans, which are significantly better quality and will honestly hold up better over time. So, as long as they fit alright, we would rather use the Hedmans than the Flotex, but once we install both of them, we'll see how they actually end up doing. We are going to carefully try to put the headers in, not scratching the ceramic coating on them or the paint on the car. You have bolts for these? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just gonna start the front and rear bolts so you can get the gasket started. To get gaskets that don't have the notch, you can notch them like this. Headers are a necessary evil for horsepower.
They looked very symmetrical on the table, but left one hangs a lot lower than the other for a lot more distance.
Yeah, that's because the left one's gotta clear the there.
Yeah, it's just interesting. So I would have thought they'd be relatively symmetrical.
Alright, well, let's get the radiator support back on and see where we're at.
Yeah, let's do that. There. On the top. Now we have ourselves the Hedman headers and the radiator support put back on the car, so we can now lower the car down to where we mocked up the suspension and see if that's actually where it should sit based on where the Hedman headers are sitting at. We have the car lowered back down as far as we have it set up to go right now, and we were checking to see, we were thinking, maybe the headers would, interact with the ground before we got to that point. And as we can see down here now, the headers don't sit much farther below the bell housing. The transmission sits on the same level as the Hedman headers. So the good headers that we have, we know will work well for this current setup. But we are still going to go and try the other headers. Alright, we tried the Hedmans, we tried the Flotex, and between the two, the Hedmans won. So we got the Hedmans bolted back inside the car, and we're going to now see how much lower we can get the car with the Hedman headers. Alright, well that's it for today. Next time we're going to put ourselves on some 2-inch drop spindles and see how much that lowers the car. But that'll be in the next video. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back soon.